It's night 20, and everyone returns from one of the season's biggest blindsides yet. Avery Lee comforts Bane as he cries about Cindy leaving. She lets him know she voted Cindy as she figured that Cindy would try to vote her out in a few tribals down the line. Bane says he isn't going to criticize her for voting Cindy, but he's still upset she never warned him about this blindside. She tells him they can still maintain trust with both sides, admitting that Antonio is going to try to pin this vote flip on Annette, even though Annette voted her on. Bane says he will throw Annette under the bus to save Antonio because at the end of the day, he's most loyal to him and Avery Lee. Meanwhile, Antonio chats with Marvin about the blindside. Antonio pretends like he has no clue what went down, and assumes Annette, O'Neill, and likely Avery Lee flipped on the alliance. Marvin believes this is the case and says they will need to come up with a way to survive since it seems the alliance is done. Antonio says they can still work together, but just cut Annette, O'Neill, and Avery Lee. Marvin later joins a conversation, asking Annette why she flipped. Annette then overreacts and asks him if he's crazy. She tells him she never flipped on Cindy. Avery Lee then throws Annette under the bus and comes up with a lie that the two of them spoke about flipping, and Annette freaks out. She tells them Avery Lee is lying and is trying to ruin this alliance, but Sierra says the alliance is already done. Aaron smiles this whole time as she watches them crumble. Later in the night, Bane, Avery Lee, Nicola, and Jonathan chat about how things will look going forward. Avery Lee says that at this point, Sierra, Marvin, and Annette are the three people she wants to take out next. Nicola says that her, Jonathan, and Aaron are definitely down for that. Bane says that although he voted Aaron last vote, he'd rather avoid Sierra and Marvin as much as possible now. Avery Lee says they should prioritize taking out Annette because she's a very emotional player. She says nobody will play an idol on Annette, unlike Sierra and Marvin who could play idols on themselves. Nicola says this plan is set in stone. Nicola chats with O'Neill to fill him in that Marvin, Sierra, and Annette are the next targets right now for everyone. O'Neill admits he's not really into that idea because he recognizes Bane, Antonio, and Avery Lee as a threatening trio that nobody has really thought about targeting. Nicola tells him they really shouldn't flip on them because they are working with them now. They need to get rid of Annette, Marvin, and Sierra so that they can gain control. Once everyone goes to sleep, Jonathan wakes up in the middle of the night and searches around camp for an idol. He surprises himself as he stumbles across the re-hidden merge idol, and silently celebrates this massive achievement. He then tells himself he'll save this one for Nicola so it's fair for both her and Aaron to have been saved with one idol each. It's day 21, and it's time for the immunity challenge. Everyone walks onto the tribe mat and see two sides with 5 machines each. On one side, the machines are orange, and on the other, the machines are beige. Justin takes back Nicola's necklace and lets everyone know that they are not playing for one immunity today. Instead, there are 2 immunity necklaces up for grabs. That's because the 10 of them will be split into 2 groups of 5. By the end of the night, both groups will vote someone out within their designated group. One person will win immunity from both groups today. In this challenge, they must continuously climb a moving wall that is trying to bring them downwards towards the floor. If you fall, you are out. The last player standing from both tribes will win individual immunity, and the last standing overall will get their group to go to tribal last. This is so they can view who got voted out from the opposing group before holding their tribal council. The players are then split up. On orange, we have Marvin, Nicola, Bane, O'Neill, and Antonio. On beige, we have Avery Lee, Annette, Jonathan, Sierra, and Aaron. With that, the challenge commences, and everyone starts off strong. Aaron almost slips off her wall, but she regains her grip and continues climbing. After a few more minutes, she gives in, and Aaron is the first person out of this challenge. Some more time passes, and Nicola is the first person from orange to drop. On beige, Annette falls off next, leaving just 3 on beige. Bane falls next on orange, followed by Orneal. Not even a few seconds later, Marvin drops as well, meaning Antonio has 1 individual immunity on orange. He continues to stay on the wall so he can hopefully allow orange to go last to tribal tonight. We're down to Antonio on orange, and then Avery Lee, Jonathan, and Sierra on yellow. Sierra falls after some time, and Jonathan almost falls off from getting startled by her unexpected fall. This leaves Avery Lee and Jonathan on the wall. Avery Lee eventually drops out, meaning Jonathan has 1 immunity on beige. Him and Antonio continue to fight to see who gets first place, and Antonio eventually leaps off his wall from tiredness, meaning orange will head to tribal first tonight, followed by beige afterwards. Justin puts on Antonio's necklace, and then Jonathan's necklace. He confirms that the 2 of them are safe tonight and they won't be the 12th or 13th person voted out of Survivor Japan. As for the rest, 1 person on orange will become the 2nd juror of the season, while someone on beige will become the 3rd juror of the season. They all head out to separate camps. On orange, Marvin, Orneal, Bane, and Nicola talk about how tough the wall challenge was. Marvin gives props to Antonio for staying on the wall for so long. Orneal wonders where Antonio went anyway, and then claims he's probably looking for an idol. Bane doesn't comment and says he's going to go searching as well for a bit. Soon after, Nicola and Orneal chat, and Nicola asks him if he would be down to vote Marvin tonight like they talked about yesterday night. Orneal says this is a bad idea because they easily have a 3-vote advantage against Bane and Antonio tonight. They can vote for Bane tonight and that would weaken his trio with Antonio and Avery Lee. Nicola says this is not the right call for them because Marvin, Sierra, and Annette are also considered a duo now, but Orneal doesn't see them as a trio necessarily. Nicola says even if Annette isn't a trio with them, Marvin and Sierra are a duo, and they know how to get their way in this game. Marvin later chats with Antonio while still under the assumption he voted for Iran last night. Marvin asks if he thinks they should vote Nicola out tonight, and Antonio says yes. Marvin says there's no need to talk further and says they can fill in Bane and that should be enough. Nicola and Marvin later chat, and Nicola fills him in that Orneal essentially wants to pull off a 3-2 vote against Bane tonight. She adds that Orneal sees Bane, Antonio, and Avery Lee as a power trio, so if he planned to vote her tonight, he should rethink his strategy. Marvin says that it makes more sense for him to keep the people who were part of his plan last night. Nicola then exposes Antonio and says he actually voted to eliminate Cindy and that it's all part of a big plan to manipulate him and Sierra so that Annette could be pinned as a common enemy. Marvin is very surprised by this and then says at this point, he seems to like this plan to vote Bane. He wouldn't be shocked if Bane is on Antonio's side as a number 1 ally, so if they can vote Bane, they can shake up Antonio. Before tribal, Bane pulls Nicola aside and lets her know that Marvin plans to vote her tonight. Nicola thanks him for letting her know, and then asks what the true plan for them is tonight. Bane says they can either vote Marvin out as their biggest threat in general, or they can vote Orneal if they fear Marvin has an idol. Nicola says she would vote Orneal just because she personally distrusts him, but she also sees the benefits in voting out Marvin to split him and Sierra up. Bane reassures her that the 2 of them and Antonio are solid tonight as a block of 3. On the beige side, Iran and Avery Lee have a chat as Iran realizes she is probably on the chopping block again for tonight. She lets her know she is someone who remembers those who save her, and in this case, Avery Lee did in fact vote to save her last night. She tells her she's going to vote for Annette tonight because she knows Annette is after the both of them. Avery Lee agrees with this plan and tells Iran she's loyal to her from now on. They hug and split from each other. Sierra later finds Avery Lee and talks to her about the vote. Sierra tells her she's not thinking about the Cindy vote anymore and is thinking ahead. She claims the smarter move for her own game is to continue to trust her, so she's going to work with her still. Avery Lee asks her if the move is around tonight, and Sierra says they may as well try again because there's no point in taking out Annette if she's their swing vote. Annette then finds Avery Lee after Sierra splits from her, and asks her if she's planning to vote her out tonight. Avery Lee says at this moment, Iran is the plan for the two of them and Sierra. Annette says she's definitely on board and says she's not thinking about last night anymore. Avery Lee tells her straight to her face that she knows they never had a conversation about taking out Cindy, but her instinct was to put the blame on her because she panicked. Annette still doesn't understand why she did it, but continues to tell her they are solid and will not break because of that one move. Of course, Annette is not exactly forgiving Avery Lee, but she really needs her to vote her on tonight. Night 21, Orange arrives to their tribal council. Justin asks them to take a seat, and so they do. He introduces Cindy, the first juror, to them. They all smile at her, but Cindy doesn't even grin. Justin then starts the discussion off by asking Antonio if he has any clue what went on last tribal to cause Cindy's departure. Antonio says that so much went down and there was so much confusion after tribal. He says he did not see the blindside coming and says props to Annette for controlling that flip. Justin then asks Marvin if he knows what Antonio means by giving props to Annette, and Marvin says rumors are going around that Annette started the flip on Cindy and got Avery Lee and Orneal to flip as well. Bane says that's exactly what happened, so at this point, he cannot trust them, especially Annette. Justin then asks Orneal what he thinks about that comment, and Orneal says he's not surprised Bane and Antonio are trying to push this narrative now that him, Annette, and Avery Lee need to go. He understands the two of them want to push the target onto them three, even though none of them are really working that closely. Justin asks Nicola if it's clear who will be getting votes tonight in this small group, but Nicola says she really doesn't know who has been telling her lies and who has been telling her the truth, so everything will truly come out after this vote. With that, Justin tells the five of them they will get into the voting now. Let's see how tribal turns out now.
I'll tally the votes. If anyone has a hidden immunity idol and they want to play it, now would be the time to do so. Alright, I'll read the votes. First vote, Bane. Orneal. That's one vote Bane, one vote Orneal. Orneal. That's two votes Orneal, one vote Bane. Bane. We're tied, 2 votes Orneal, 2 votes Bane, 1 vote left. 12th person voted out of Survivor Japan and the second member of our jury. Orneal.
Orneal is stunned and lets out a loud sigh. Marvin looks down while Nicola smiles at Bane and Antonio. Orneal places his torch down next to Justin and watches it get snuffed. Justin lets him know he can sit on the jury bench next to Cindy so he can watch Beija's tribal council, so Orneal walks to the jury bench and sits down next to Cindy. He turns to Cindy, but she ignores him. Justin tells the other 4 they can head back to camp now so Beige can arrive at tribal council. With that, Beige now holds their tribal council, and Justin lets them know Orneal was voted out from Orange. Justin asks Zonathan if it comes as a surprise that Orneal got voted off, but Zonathan simply says no since the likely scenario that occurred was Rebu against Tabru and Marvin. Sierra jumps on and says that's most likely what happened. She adds that at this point, Taproot and Tatakai are still very tight, and despite the flip on Cindy, they realize they can still move forward as a 6. Aaron laughs at Sierra's idea of Taproot and Tatakai moving on as a 6 because it should be very apparent to her that they are not as tight, proven by the Cindy vote. Sierra tells her she obviously cannot trust Reibu, so who else would she trust? Justin asks Annette if she thinks there is a 6 still staying strong even after Cindy's departure, and Annette nods. She says that there's no point working with Reibu if they have been untrustworthy since the beginning. They won once with their idle play, why work with them if you already tried to vote them out? Justin then turns to Avery Lee and asks her if all this talk means Aaron is heading out tonight as the sole Reibu eligible to receive votes tonight, and Avery Lee says unless there's another flip like last night, it sounds about right. Aaron gulps and looks at Jonathan, visibly nervous. Justin lets the 5 of them know it's time to vote. Let's see how Tribal turns out now.
I'll tally the votes. If anyone has a hidden immunity idol and they want to play it, now would be the time to do so. Alright, I'll read the votes. First vote. Aaron. Aaron. That's 2 votes Aaron. Annette. 2 votes Aaron, 1 vote Annette. Annette. That's 2 votes Aaron, 2 votes Annette, 1 vote left. 13th person voted out of Survivor Japan and the 3rd member of our jury. Annette.
Avery Lee closes her eyes and breathes out after Annette shakes her head in disbelief. Aaron breathes out as she grasps at the fact she survived yet again. Annette gets up and heads towards her torch. Sierra looks back at Avery Lee and shakes her head. Annette puts her torch down next to Justin and gets it snuffed. She heads out without a word, and Sierra looks at the jury and mouths to them that she's screwed. Justin then lets them know they can reunite with the rest of their tribe back at camp. They all head out. Next time on Survivor Japan, as the final 8 reunite, the Orange group learns Annette was last voted out, leaving Marvin and Sierra to believe that they are on the outs now. However, Aaron starts to shift her trust around as she begins to worry that Antonio and Bane have Avery Lee really close to them. Will Aaron end up siding with Sierra and Marvin? Plus, do not miss out on the auction as new lines are drawn as a result of it. All of this will be featured on Sunday's episode. Orneal's final thoughts. Orneal isn't sure if Marvin or Nicola flipped on him, but nevertheless, he wishes he just stuck with Bane and Antonio, as it's evident Nicola and Marvin didn't have his back 100%. He's mainly upset he got out with an idol in his pocket, but at least it's a nice souvenir for him. Annette's final thoughts. Annette knew Avery Lee was a snake after being thrown under the bus by her with a lie. She's very frustrated she didn't have the power to flip the vote onto Avery Lee because with the split tribes twist, it was evident Aaron and Jonathan would naturally side with Avery Lee as it was the simplest thing they could do.